I'm Bo Johnson. Let me show you exactly how the IRS flips the burden of proof and why the entire system runs on presumption and not law. First, the IRS reverses the normal rules of law through administrative presumption, and they do it in three predictable ways. They start with the presumption of jurisdiction. The moment the IRS receives a W-2, a 1099, a bank report, employer withholding, or anything that labels you as a quote-unquote U.S. person or quote-unquote taxpayer, they automatically assume you are operating in federal jurisdiction, engaged in a federally taxable activity, or receiving federally privileged income. They don't prove jurisdiction. They start by assuming it. That's how their system is designed. They treat silence as agreement. If you do not formally challenge liability, status, jurisdiction, or the legal basis of their claim, the IRS records your silence as acceptance. This is why they send notices instead of evidence. Notices shift the burden onto you. If you disagree, you must show why, is what they say. So the IRS claims authority unless you contest it. They use the word quote-unquote frivolous to avoid proving anything. When someone challenges jurisdiction or liability, IRS agents respond with, "Your argument is frivolous. We don't address these issues." Or, "Courts have ruled you must provide evidence." This is deliberate. Labeling something frivolous allows the agency to avoid presenting evidence, proving jurisdiction, identifying the statutory liability, or showing the actual legal nexus. Instead, they flip the burden back on you, demanding that you prove their mistake. When does this burden of flipping happen? There are four specific moments when the IRS uses presumption instead of proof. The CP 2000 or proposed assessment. This is not evidence. It is presumption. It literally says, if you disagree, send documentation. Translation, you must disprove their assumption. There's the notice of deficiency. This notice does not prove liability, it simply asserts it. Opening line, we have determined that you owe. This is not documentation or evidence, and you must object within 90 days or their allegation becomes fact. That's a complete reversal of lawful burden. Agents routinely say, you must provide proof. You must show that you are exempt. You must prove that you are not liable. This is the opposite of law. Government must prove jurisdiction. They must prove liability, and they must prove authority. Yet their manuals instruct agents to treat the citizen as one who must disprove the government's claim. In tax court, the U.S. tax court is not an Article III court. It is an administrative tribunal. And under its rules, you carry the burden of proving the IRS wrong, unless extremely narrow exceptions apply. The IRS has no obligation to prove jurisdiction unless you specifically challenge it, and they rely on the fact that most Americans never do. This is how the IRS wins by default, not by evidence. Here's the reality in one sentence. The IRS never proves jurisdiction, they assume it, and unless you challenge it, they treat your silence as consent. That is how an agency without lawful authority controls a nation, not through law, but through presumption. And, I might add, we've all done it based upon our ignorance and unwillingness to change, unwillingness to challenge the system. It's time for that to be reversed. And as always, may truth reign supreme.